What's going on, guys? Week 9 in the NFL is upon us. Welcome to the weekly market review. I can't believe, I know it feels like I say this every week, but I can't believe it's already week 9. We're pretty much halfway or a little bit, I guess now past halfway through the NFL season. So we're coming off another green week in week 8. Started off my week 8 with a loss on Thursday Night Football with the Vikings. On Sunday, we had a solid Sunday. We had the Browns outright, so that plus 350 helped a lot. And then we had Buffalo, who was a very easy cover. And then we had the Niners at night with a little bit of a sweat, but we got it for 2 units. And our losses were Miami. And I had a teaser. So the teaser was the Jets and the Eagles. Eagles do their job. Of course, the Jets. I mean, I thought if the Jets are going to win any game, it's going to be against the Patriots, right? Not the case. So, but then we finished it off last night with a 2-0 on Monday Night Football. We had the over, which cashed, and then we had a George Pickens prop, which hit. So overall, good week 8. That's a few green weeks now in a row, so we're cooking. And we still haven't had that like oomph week though. We did have, I think week 3 was the week where I went like 6-1, but other than that, there hasn't been like a boom, like a 5-0 with hitting dogs outright. There hasn't been like this huge like plus 8, 9, 10 unit week. We're just kind of like slowly chipping away, but I do feel it coming though. I feel it coming. And the second half of the season can be very profitable if you know how to pick your spots. All right, before we get into the market review for week 9, just a quick reminder, we're partnered with the Action Network. If you don't have the Action app, it's a phenomenal app. I use it every day. Tons of free info, articles, and tools on there. And the other thing is that I post all of my free plays on there before they go up anywhere else. So before I make any videos like here on Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, I throw a free play up on there from time to time, pretty much a play every day. So follow me on the Action app with the link down in the description. All right, we're starting things off with Thursday Night Football. I just mentioned the Jets. They're at home, back home against the Houston Texans. The Jets are laying now 2. You can still find a 1.5 out there in some spots, but they're laying 2 points as a home favorite against Houston. Totals right now at 42. Yeah, this is interesting because it's very reminiscent of last week's Thursday Night Football game, where nobody could really make sense of the line. Even my power ratings had Minnesota rated much higher. And I didn't think Puka Nacua was going to play, which is why I sent the play out early. If I knew he was going to play, to be honest with you, I probably would lay off the game. But I knew Kupp was going to play, but the offense completely changes with both of those guys in. Now, in similar scenario this week, because Houston is in a tricky spot coming off of a divisional win in a pretty close game. I mean, the Colts were in that game. If Anthony Richardson is not, himself, the Colts have a chance to win that game outright. But Houston comes off of that divisional win at home. Now it's to travel on the short week. Lots of offensive injuries. You lose Diggs now along with Nico Collins, so that's going to hurt. Mixon's playing great, though, but that's pretty much, for the most part, all you have left. And then on defense, on the other side, the Jets have their injuries on defense, though, which maybe potentially offset those offensive injuries a bit for Houston. So it's kind of an interesting matchup. I think that's the unit matchup that we're going to have to look at the most in this game is the Houston offense versus the Jets defense, because they're both kind of injury riddled, and you want to see which one of those takes advantage of the other. I understand the spot here, and the sharp money's come in, by the way. So this was basically a pick. You could get Houston -1 in some books, Jets -1 in some books. Then the sharps came in, took the Jets, and I get it because of the spot. I understand the spot, but this is a team now that's lost 5 games in a row. When the Jets had lost 2 in a row, you could have come to me on the 3rd game of this 5-game losing streak, and you could have said the spot. Then on the 4th loss in a row, you could have said, but it's the spot. The 5th loss in a row, it's the spot, and it's the Patriots. It's always the spot with the Jets, and it never matters. So for me, I'm not looking to play them at all. I kind of lean over a little bit in this game because of the defenses to the Jets, because of the injuries to the Jets defense. But for me, I'm looking to play Houston in a teaser. That's the way I would attack this. Getting the 2 allows you to take it up to +8 in a 6-point teaser, and I would look to combine this with another team. But this to me, now that it's hit 2, it's probably one of my favorite teaser legs of the week, because even if the Jets do win this game, the Jets are not going to win. The Jets are not the type of offense that's ever going to win by margin, and I don't think they're going to win this game by more than a touchdown. I think either Houston's going to win this game outright, and if you said I'm taking the +110 on the money line, I wouldn't blame you, or this is going to be a tight game down to the very end. So I really like Houston in a teaser here, getting 8 points. It's one of my, like I said, one of my favorite legs. I'd probably combine it with something like Baltimore. If you can get a -8.5, bring that down to 2.5. That's a good spot. Cleveland as a home dog, another good spot. So one of those, but Houston as a teaser would be how I play this. Not too interested in much else in that game. All right, headed over to Sunday. You got the Dolphins versus the Bills. This is an interesting divisional game. Miami coming off that loss to the Cardinals. The Bills coming off the blowout in Seattle. Buffalo's laying 6 at home, and the total set at 50. To me, you saw these teams play earlier this year in that Thursday night football game. That was the game that Tua got hurt. Buffalo blew them out. Buffalo blew them out twice last year, I believe. Swept the season series. The Bills just own the Dolphins, man. I would look to lay the 6 here with Buffalo if I was going to play this game. That's where I'm leaning. Could end up being a play, honestly. Tua being back obviously makes the Dolphins offense much more of a threat. But that defense still, they struggle against mobile quarterbacks. You saw it last week with Kyler Murray. The secondary's good, but once plays start to break up, and this is something that Josh Allen's really good at. Once plays start to break up, man, things start to deteriorate back there. And they still have even with Tua back and a healthy offense, you've got healthy running backs, you've got Hill out there, you've got a good secondary. But even with it all, it just seem like an average team. It's just an average team, really. I have them in my power ratings, right? Yeah, basically right around an average team, a little below. So, Miami's, while I said they're good in the secondary, they're not great against the rush. And the Bills' identity this season, which I love, has been largely about establishing the run and using James Cook a ton. He's getting a ton of work. I think he can have a good game in this matchup. And I think that the Dolphins, I'd lean slightly to the over because I think Buffalo's going to put up points like they do against anyone. I think the Dolphins are going to have to play from behind. You're probably going to see Tua throwing the ball a lot more than usual. But honestly, pretty strong lean here to Buffalo minus the 6. Anything under 7, I think they're going to take care of this game. And I think they also smell blood, right? You smell blood. You've got a pretty nice division lead now. You're sitting pretty comfortably with the other 3 teams in the division are way below 500 and they look like crap. I think Buffalo smells blood in the water and they go for the kill. So give me the Bills minus 6 in that game. The Broncos in Baltimore taking on the Ravens. Ravens are laying 9 points, total 8.5 in some books, depending on where you shop. Total is 44.5. And both of these teams coming off of obviously different Sundays. The Broncos get another nice win, albeit against pretty weak competition in the Carolina Panthers. The Ravens, that was our big hit on Sunday. We had the Browns plus 9.5 and money line, so the Ravens lose that game. But that was a pretty, I know it's easy to say after the fact, but that was a pretty obvious spot to me, right? It's a road divisional game. You're on the road in a divisional game against a team that just changed their quarterback. You saw this earlier this year a few times with Andy Dalton coming in for the Panthers. They get the little dead cat bounce on offense, right? Joe Flacco coming in for the Colts. Anytime you have these like little wily vets sitting on the sidelines, these gunslingers that don't get a lot of action, someone gets hurt or something goes wrong, they come in and they take advantage of it, and people are not ready for it. And that's exactly what Winston is. He's a high variance gunslinger, and that's what you want if you're going to take dogs. So that spot to me lined up pretty well. It doesn't concern me too much that Baltimore lost the game because it was just, and the Ravens had had won 5 in a row coming into that. This is the NFL. You're not going to put together 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks pretty often. So winning 5 in a row, they're still in a good spot. I'm not worried about the Ravens, and I think this is a great matchup for them against the Broncos team that just, to me, is overvalued right now. I mean, I recommended their win total over 5.5 before the season started, so I'm not too surprised that they're seeing some success with that defense and with Sean Payton, but they haven't played many good teams. So I think this is a quote unquote take out your frustration game for the Ravens, who are much better. And if Bo Nix is going to beat you, he's going to have to beat you through the air, and he's going to have to do it on the road. I don't particularly like that. The Broncos have a couple of fluky wins. They probably should not have won that game against the Jets. That was a game that Greg the Leg gave away. So I think I lean Ravens here. If you can get 8.5, okay. But once again, this is a great teaser leg. So if you got an 8.5, combining that with something like Houston, something like Cleveland, even Dallas is a good teaser leg this week. I really, really like the Ravens to win at minus 2.5 in a teaser. But I also think this could turn into a blowout. This could be, remember the Commanders game, right? The Commanders were flying high. They come into Baltimore. They were 6.5 point dogs, I believe. Ravens win and cover, even though it was not, a blowout. It was, they won by 7. They covered by the hook. But I could see this being a game where the Ravens win by 10 plus is what I'm trying to say. So -9 to me is not too much of a concern. And I think the Ravens, I mean, that's it. You don't have much more room for error. You lose week 1 against Kansas City. Okay, fine. They're the Chiefs. Week 2, you have that horrific loss against the Raiders. Now you just dropped the game to the Browns. You don't have much more margin for error. If you're, 5-4 sitting in that division behind the 6-2 Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to get it together. So I think Baltimore is in almost like a mini not desperation, but like a mini, this is a like an anxious spot. You got to come out and take this game and take it easily. So a lean to Baltimore in that game. The Raiders are on the road in Cincinnati. They're getting 7.5. Totals at 47. Raiders have now lost several games in a row, although you saw some good competition and some good heart out of them against the Chiefs on Sunday. But that was a divisional game. Just mentioned it with the Baltimore-Cleveland game. Home divisional dog getting a really big number is way different than going on the road, against a non-divisional opponent. And the Bengals are basically, I mean, listen, you could say the Bengals are basically at the point where they have no room for error and they really got to get things going. I think the Bengals are done, personally. The defense is just not good. And you cannot survive in the NFL on just, throwing you can't pass your way to wins anymore. It's not that kind of league. So even though they have a good passing offense, you've seen it start to be contained a little bit over the last few weeks. Close win against the Giants where they couldn't do much. Close win against the Browns where they couldn't do much. Now a blowout loss to the Eagles. I think once you figure out the passing attack of the Bengals and how to contain it a bit, even with T. Higgins coming back, I think once you figure that out, they're kind of one-dimensional, and on defense, they're a concern. So I think this could be a good teaser leg at 7.5, but we also said that in week 1 and week 2 when they were minus this exact same number against the Patriots and the Commanders, and they lost both of those games outright. So I would stay away from this game personally, but if I had to lean anywhere, it would be getting the points with Las Vegas because I just don't think the Bengals they're just not that good to me. This is not an elite team this season, and I think they're just barely above average. All right, Washington is on the road in New York taking on the Giants. The Commanders are now laying 3.5 points or 3, depending on where you look. Let's see, are those 3s actually still there? I thought I saw a few 3s. No, it's 3.5 across the board now, so the 3s are gone. The total sitting at 43.5. And this is one of your classic spots where, I guess it kind of got amplified by the Giants' loss last night, although they weren't terrible in Pittsburgh, but the Giants lose, the Commanders get a win on Sunday, and this line bumps up a bit. There were 3s, now it's 3.5. But it's not that the Commanders won, right? That makes me look to the Giants here. It's how they won. We all saw the Hail Mary. That's a crazy, crazy result in a game that they probably should have lost. Yes, sometimes a quote-unquote letdown spot can be exaggerated. Like we haven't seen any letdown with the Lions this year. Even though every week it seems like they're in a prototypical letdown spot, they just keep on going. But they're the Lions. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. In my power ratings, they are the best team in the NFL, the best offense in the NFL. And I don't think Washington is as good as them. So I would look here for a bit of a letdown coming out of that. It's a divisional game, a home divisional dog. You're giving me the key number of 3 and the hook. These teams played each other earlier this season. I think it was week 2. When the Giants were, I think, 2.5 point dogs on the road in Washington. And the only reason the Commanders won that 21-18 was the final. I remember because we had Washington in that game. And the only reason they won that game, honestly, was because the Giants lost their kicker in that game and they couldn't kick any field goals. They had to go for it on 4th down. And remember, Neighbors drops that pass on the sideline and Jaden Daniels goes down to win the game. So, and that was the game where it was all it was 21-18, but it was all field goals. There was no touchdowns in that game. So yeah, I'd lean to the Giants here. I think they can play them close. Getting 3.5 at home. No opinion on the total, but this is just a classic spot. If you bet on sports, if you know the NFL, you know a spot like this when you see it. Team comes off the crazy win, emotional high, going ballistic. Then you got to hit the road to face a divisional opponent that amplifies it a bit. Small lean to the Giants in this game, getting 3.5. All right, the Chargers versus the Browns. LA -2 now on the road. A couple of -1.5s out there as well. 42 is the total. I saw this pop up on Sunday night, and it was LA -3, and I was like, oh, man, that's a great spot for the Browns. By the time I go to to send it out to subs because I don't like to bet anything personally until I make sure that our subscribers get the same number. So I don't, if I see a +3 and I'm like, I know already, like I don't even have to look at my power ratings. I know the line is off per my power ratings, which is just my opinion, but I know it's off. But I don't take it because I say, all right, I got to wait. If I get a chance to send this out, then we can jump on it. But of course the threes are gone now. So 2.5, 2, 1.5. But I like Cleveland here, I think, and the total's at 42. I think the Chargers are an overrated 4-3. I don't really think they've played anybody great. They played the Chiefs once. They lost Herbert in that game. They put up 10 points. They pushed or covered, depending on the number you got, I guess. But I don't think LA is. I don't want to say they're not good because I think they're a solid team. I have them right around an average team in my power ratings. But Jameis Winston is going to test you in this game. He is, and he, like I said earlier, high variance gunslinger. He's not going to be afraid to throw the ball. And I think the Browns can get a little bit of help on the ground here. Nick Chubb settling back in. I think he can have success in this game. And what I saw from the Chargers, or what I'm continuing to see from the Chargers, is that they're just not running the ball as well as they were in the beginning of the year with J.K. Dobbins in that offensive line. And you got a bad matchup here against a very good Cleveland defensive front. And Herbert doesn't have many weapons to begin with. So if you get stuffed a bit on the ground, I think it could be a long day for the Chargers. So I actually lean Cleveland here with the 2. I lean them on the money line, and I love them in a teaser. Up to 8. So Browns +8. Combine that with a Houston, like I said earlier, Houston, Dallas, whatever your favorite teaser leg is of the week. But I think this is a great spot for Cleveland to continue the success that you saw last week against the Ravens. And I think this is a team that they can do it against in the Chargers. And I think that locker room is probably pretty rejuvenated now after a win like that behind Winston. So small lean to the Browns in this game, but love them in a teaser because, again, this is one of those things where the same thing I said like about Houston, where even if the Jets win, they can't win by margin. The Chargers are so as a team, they profile as such a team that they're good as a dog, but they're not going to win by margin. So if you ever have to lay a lot of points with them, unless it's against a bottom feeder like the Saints with no Desmond with Spencer Rattler, or the Panthers, which they played earlier this year, unless it's a team like that, they're not going to win by margin. And the Cleveland's defense is still pretty good. And now you have some life at quarterback, and you've got a healthy running back who's, when healthy, of one of the elite ones in the league. I think this is a good matchup for Cleveland, and I would take them in this game. All right, Cowboys on the road in Atlanta. Dallas +2.5. Total 52.5. The 2.5 for Atlanta is juiced a bit, which I think is interesting. -2.5. I'm seeing it at -115 in most places. Let's see, -115 pretty much across the board. So, with the way the money's coming in, maybe you wait a little bit and you can get a 3 if you like Dallas. Which I do. I mean, I'm not really sure why the money is flooding in on Atlanta. I mean, I know the Dallas defense does not look good, but I think the Dallas offense can get its chances in this game. We spoke about this last week when I said I would slightly lean to Tampa, even though they were missing their weapons, because the Falcons just don't get any pressure. And the one thing you saw San Francisco do to disrupt the Cowboys, and the Lions do the week before that, they get pressure on Prescott, and Prescott is not as mobile as he used to be. He's not as evasive as he used to be, and he can't throw on the run as well as he used to. So getting pressure on the Cowboys is very important. The Falcons cannot do it. They're still dead last in the league at getting pressure on the quarterback, and I think that's a problem in this particular matchup against a team that's not going to want to run the ball much. This is an indoors game where they need to put up points because the Falcons are going to be putting up points. So I think the Cowboys can have some success offensively, and I kind of get the same vibe from this game that I did from the Seattle matchup last week, where they went into Atlanta, Geno indoors without any pressure, got whatever he wanted, and they easily blew them out. I think the Cowboys can win this game. So I also like them in teasers as well, up to 8.5. I think that's a solid leg also. The total here, an interesting point just to make, the total was at 48.5 on the open. It's now 52.5, so that's a very big move. 52, when we're talking about totals in the 50s, 52 is a key number. 52, 54, those are the key numbers. I would stay away from this, but if this were to maybe see some buyback on the other side and maybe get down below the 51, I would then look to play the over in this game because I think you're going to see points in this game. All right, next up, the Patriots are on the road in Tennessee. Who's ready for this game? Pat's getting 3.5 now. Total's at 38. This was an even 3, so it looks like some money came in on Tennessee. And again, I'll tell you the same thing that I said about the Houston Jets game, the Washington, New York game. This is another game where the spot is there. If you've been betting NFL for a long time and you're good at identifying spots, this is one of them for Tennessee. The Patriots come off of the outright win as a 7-point home dog against a divisional opponent. The Titans go on the road in a impossible matchup, even though the spot wasn't good for the Lions. Just an impossible matchup against the Lions, and they get destroyed in that game. But the final score does not tell the whole story. The Titans outgained them. I think the Titans had like 200 yards of offense at the half, but they were down by like 20 points. Just a really crazy fluky win, but they look much better with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. And you're going to get a Patriots team now that just got this crazy win. This is their first win since week 1, outright at home, touchdown with a few seconds left to seal it. Everything about this says Tennessee. Here's my only problem is that I've backed the Titans twice this season, and I'm 0-2 doing it. Week 1, they're up 17-0 at the half, getting 4.5. And they lose the game 24-17. Remember that against the Bears. And then a couple of weeks ago against the Colts, where they had a 10-point lead in the second half, lead in the fourth quarter, lose the game. So I'm not running to back Tennessee, even though the spot's there. I don't care. But, this is your prototypical, again, spot. Situational spot. Let down for one side, buy low for the other side, buy low, sell high, whatever you want to call it. It's there. So if you want to take Tennessee, I don't blame you. I just can't do it because and part of handicapping is there is a personal, everyone makes it just numbers. It's just bet the numbers, not the teams. Yeah, you bet the numbers, but everyone has their own personal style of handicapping. And you can get sour on a team. Like I know handicappers that are like, you can give me plus 21 with Carolina and I'm not taking it. So these things exist. And for me, this is probably the only team this season that I just won't touch for the rest of the year is Tennessee. Just because I've bet them in 2 spots that I thought the spot could not be any better for them. And they lost both of them. So yes, it's a new quarterback. Maybe that allows you to justify this, but even with Mason Rudolph, do I want to lay 3 in the hook? Probably not. Could I see this being a 3-point win? Probably. So I'm out on this game. Nothing for me here. The Saints are headed to Carolina. This is a divisional game in the NFC South. You got a big number here. New Orleans -7 on the road. Totals at 45. The reason why they're -7 is because Derek Carr is expected to play in this game. It looks like he's going to be returning from injury. So you won't have Spencer Rattler in there anymore. Dalton's still going to be out for the Panthers, so you will have Bryce Young in there. So that's why this line is the way it is. Although the Panthers look like they should be getting a bit healthier on the defensive side of the ball, get some guys back over there. I don't know. Like I said, I put a stat up on Twitter. Let me pull it up while I talk about this because this is kind of interesting. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, shameless plug, at Lock and Cash on Twitter, I do put a lot of cool trends on there. So stuff that I don't, if I find a really neat nugget or a trend, right, I'm not going to make a full video about it, just one little thing. So I throw it on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, follow me over there. But let me point out this thing that I found on the Carolina Panthers. So I posted a thread with like some of the craziest trends, right? And here's the thing. So they're a 7-point home dog this week. Carolina has been a dog in 27 straight games. Okay. Yesterday made it 28. In those 28 games, they're now 6-22 against the spread. All right. That's 27%. As a dog in every single game. So, yeah, +7 at home in a divisional matchup looks nice until you realize that this team is just stealing money. The Panthers are just stealing money. This is not a team I'm looking to back in any fashion. And any questions about the Saints offense? Yes, they've got, they're not fully healthy on that side of the ball, but Carr fits in so well, right? With that scheme that they run. And it's really hard for someone else to come in, no less a rookie, to come in and operate it. But I think Carr just fits right back in. Like look at the Dolphins. I know they lost. They did lose. the game, but that was more on the defensive side of the ball. They put up 28, I think it was 28 points on offense. But think about something like that, right? They go from not being able to score anything to putting up 28 points just by inserting Tua back in. I think it's very similar with the Saints. I think the scheme lends itself to the way Carr plays. I think you just slide him right back in against a pretty weak defense, even if they're getting guys back. This is a bad defense, a very bad Carolina defense. So slight lean here to the Saints. Wouldn't play this game, though. You want to tell me you like the Saints in teasers? Okay, that's fine, but I probably wouldn't do it. I'm just staying away from this game because remember, I mean, it is as bad as Carolina is. It is the ultimate. This is the ultimate rock bottom price you're going to get on a team that's getting 7 in a divisional game as a home dog. So just an overall pass for me on that game. Maybe you could look to the over. I do think the Saints will be able to put up points. And maybe if this Saints offense had Carr for this entire time, you wouldn't be getting a 45 here. You might be getting a higher number. So could see the over hitting there in that game as well. The Jaguars on the road in Philly. Jacksonville plus 7.5. Totals 45.5. This to me is Philly all day. You guys know from if you were following before the season and you watched my early season preview video in the summer, I said I'm super high on Philadelphia this year. I've got futures on them for the division. And they're finally showing, like they're finally rounding into form. They're finally looking like that team that I thought they would be all season long. It started off a little bit shaky. Obviously, you have the start from Washington, which is kind of exacerbating things for them and having them play from behind in the division. But they look great. Out of the bye, maybe a little bit rusty. But aside from the blocked field goal that turned into a touchdown, aside from that, they outplayed the Browns pretty much. Killed the Giants, now killed the Bengals. I'm just impressed with what I'm seeing with the Eagles. And now you get this Jaguars defense, man. It's so bad. I give credit to the offense, and Trevor Lawrence is playing well. I think he's not to blame for their struggles, but this defense is horrific. And I think the Eagles will get whatever they want on the ground with Saquon. Anytime, one of the big advantages the Eagles have is anytime that ball gets within the 5, they're scoring a touchdown. How many times on Monday Night Football last night, even though we had the over and it cashed, the first half, there was 6 drives that got into the red zone and 6 field goals. That's something the Eagles don't do. Once they get in there, they got the tush push. They can pound it in. Saquon's big and strong. Hurts is big and strong. It's a huge advantage they have, man, especially late in the season and especially into the playoffs. So I like the Eagles here as a teaser leg for sure because they're minus 7.5. You can bring them to 1.5, but I also just think they cover the spread. I think this game is a blowout. And I think this could be the game that maybe seals the fate of the Jaguars for the rest of the season. So I'd lean Philly minus 7.5 in this one. I think they should be able to comfortably win this game. Not much opinion on the total. Maybe a small lean to the over since you're under some key numbers there at 46 and 47, but I really like Philly in this one. All right, Chicago at Arizona. The Bears are now -1. I think we have a flip here, right? Let me go check. And the total is sitting at 44.5. I remember earlier, I don't know if it was Sunday or Monday, I did see Arizona going off as the favorite. But it's kind of, you got to pick. We do have -1 still on a couple of books for Arizona, but I'm seeing Chicago -1, Arizona -1. Caesars has a pick, so it kind of depends on where you look, but basically a pick. And this is the antithesis of the game that we just spoke about earlier with Washington and the New York Giants, where you're looking to fade the Commanders after that win. Well, guess what? You're probably looking to, if you're a sharp bettor, if you've been doing this for a while, probably looking to buy on Chicago after that loss. Because that was a game where they looked really rusty coming out of the bye against I don't want to say bad, but I'll say against a mediocre Commanders defense, because I think we've seen enough from that Commanders defense to not call them bad anymore, in my opinion. Maybe they're just mediocre. But earlier in the season, everyone was talking about how they're so horrific, they're so prolifically bad that the offense is going to have to keep them in games. Not so much anymore. That defense has kind of stepped it up a bit. So, a bit of a tough game for the Bears coming out of the bye. Obviously, some rust there. They did not look good offensively. All that momentum they had before the bye week, where they looked phenomenal on offense. It all kind of went away in that game. And then obviously you lose on the brutal. At the end of the day, you still have a chance. You still have a lead, right? With a few seconds left, you should win that game. A fluky, brutal loss. But now you get Arizona, who's won 2 games in a row. Prior to that game last week, one of the reasons I like the Dolphins, there were many reasons, but one of the reasons why I liked them was Cardinals have been a very zigzag type of team. They had not won 2 games in a row for the last 2 seasons, I believe. So, but they did. And now you have to ask yourself, do they win 3 games in a row? And sometimes, guys, in certain matchups, sometimes it's just that simple. It's like, do I see this team winning 3 games in a row? Especially against a team that has a better defense and is desperate for a win after what just happened to them last week. Sometimes it's that simple. So I got to lean Chicago in this spot for sure. Just not sure if I'm going to play it yet. It's basically a pick, like I said, so you're not really losing any value whether you get +1, -1. It's typically not going to matter. But I could see the Bears coming out with an inspired effort and winning this game. And they're good against the run, which is what sets up a lot of stuff for the Cardinals. When James Conner's running the ball well, he's just very good. But when he's running the ball well, it sets up a lot of their offense, and it sets up a lot of opportunities for Murray in the passing game. So if Chicago can contain them a bit on the ground, I kind of like the Bears, which I think they can do that. So small lean to the Bears in this game, but nothing that I'm running to bet on. All right, the Lions are in Green Bay, laying 3.5. Another divisional game. Total's at 48.5. Now, this line is where it is, guys, because of the uncertainty surrounding the Jordan Love injury. It was a groin injury in the game last week. He had to come out early second half. The Lions get the blowout of the Tennessee Titans. They did win, their lone divisional game on the road. They went into Minnesota, got a win. You already know my opinion. Now, this is going to be the Lions' first outdoor game. That's worth mentioning. This is their first game outdoors this season. Now, do I think suddenly they're going to just become a different team? No, of course not. But one of the reasons why I have so much riding on the Lions in several futures, I have them for their win total. I have division. I have a few other sprinkles. So the reason, but I loved them coming into the season because they played their first 7 games indoors. They play 14 out of 17 games indoors, and they're so good indoors with that offense. Goff is so good at covering the spread. We've bet them a lot this year. We have not lost on them yet. So, that's where I would lean. I would lean to live. But again, I'm saying this is kind of like the opposite of what I said earlier about the Titans. With the Lions, I have a good feel for them. I have a good rapport with that team. They cover when I bet them. They respect the money, and the Titans don't. But yes, 3.5 on the road, especially if Love is ruled in. So this is kind of like this spread almost seems to be hedging because it wouldn't be 3.5 if Jordan Love was confirmed going to play in 100%. It would not be this number. But he's not, right? So if he's ruled out, this is kind of like a hedge. If he's out, this line probably jumps up a couple points, 5, maybe 6. If he's in, this probably gets down close to a pick, right? And honestly, if he's in, I would look to play the Lions. Because I like to fade that kind of injury stuff. I tried to do it earlier this year when Carr got hurt, it didn't work out, but I like to buy the backup quarterback and sell the injured starter, especially if it's a groin issue. It's going to make you less mobile. It's going to affect a lot of things. So, and I think the Lions, obviously, they match up well against anybody. They're just so good offensively, and I love what Ben Johnson's doing there. The defense, didn't. Here's the one thing if you take away from last week, even though it was the 52-14, whatever it was, but the one thing you take away is that the defense did not look that great. The Titans got a lot of yardage on them. They were moving the ball pretty well. They just couldn't. They just got a lot of unfortunate breaks, punt returns for touchdowns, all this stuff. So, again, lean to the Lions. But am I running to play it now at 3.5? No, unless you feel typically the injury that Jordan Love had typically is a 2-week kind of he shouldn't play, but it's a big divisional game against a team that you probably want to get a win against. But at the same time, if it's me, I'm the Packers. I have a winning record. I'm in this race. I have the bye coming up. I would not risk further injury. So my expectation is that Jordan Love does not play in this game. And this is all gamesmanship to kind of throw off the Lions' preparation for the week. I don't think it's going to matter. I still think they'll win and cover. But if you like me don't think Jordan Love's going to play, you probably would want to take this 3.5 now before he's officially ruled out and this bumps up. But you do take on the risk then of him actually playing. So just keep that in mind. That's why for me this uncertain spot is I'll just stay away from it. It's not like I need to run and bet it, but just some context there if you're on the fence about it. All right, the Rams are in Seattle, and this line is also flipped. Seahawks were -1. You now see the Rams -1, -1.5 as well as across the board out there, and totals at 48.5. This is a game that I have a really tough read on, because both teams seem to be in a spot, right? So the Seahawks just got blown out at home, but you get to stay at home. That kind of benefits them a little bit. But the Rams come off of that impressive win. Now we're on extended rest, where McVay is good on extended rest. and you get both of your healthy wide receiver ones back. They're both great. Kyren Williams is running the ball really well. And you just saw what the Bills did to this Seahawks defense. I don't know. I think the Rams have new life offensively, and I think they could be dangerous going down the stretch. Obviously, a big divisional game here, and if you're the 49ers, you're rooting for the Rams, so you can take back the division from the Seahawks. But it's just a tough game to read, man. I don't know. It feels like a buy low spot on both teams, to be honest, because coming into the season, I would have told you the Rams would probably be a little better than the Seahawks. But now the Seahawks have got that ugly loss last week, and they're at home. And again, it's just one of those tricky spots. It's a tough road environment. But man, Stafford with Kupp, Nakua, and Kyren Williams, that offense looked good last week. And we know what that offense looks like when they have Kupp and Nakua. So with those two guys healthy, it's kind of hard to back off of them. So lean to the Rams in this game. That's where I would lean. But again, a bit of a tricky read. I don't really have a good feel for this one. Sunday Night Football, the Colts in Minnesota against the Vikings. Vikings coming off of that extra rest, playing on Thursday Night Football. They're laying 6. Totals at 45.5. This number did get hit down. It was a 7. I think there was even a 7.5. So Colts took money. I guess people liked what they saw out of Anthony Richardson last week. He's probably still going to start this week. I don't know. Another tough game. The spot says Minnesota because the Colts come off of a rough and tough divisional game where they got a close emotional loss. Now they have to travel to Minnesota. But I don't know. You know, the Vikings game on Thursday, I know in hindsight, I had the Vikings. In hindsight, it was a precarious spot for them. But losing Darisaw, I think, is huge, number one. And number two, it's just almost sometimes when you get a few losses in a row, like the Lions beat you, then the Rams beat you, even though it was on a short week and the spot wasn't good. But then it's kind of like it almost like puts the script out there of like this, okay, this is how you beat them, right? And I think we all knew, like I definitely knew that Sam Darnold was not going to play at such a high level for the entire season. But I just didn't think it would come that quickly against the Rams. But you know, I don't know. The Colts also play pretty soft defense. They kind of just sit back in that cover 3. Maybe he gets a little bit of a bounce back game. I don't have a strong feel for this one either way. I could see the Colts covering. I could see the Vikings covering. Maybe a slight lean to Indy getting the full 6. If this gets any lower, I would look to Minnesota. But this is probably a game what I've really had a lot of success doing this year. And if you're a subscriber, you would know that if I don't have a strong read, like last night's game, if I don't have a strong read on a game on the side, or the total, really, I'll just look to play some props because you can find a lot of value on some of these props. But it's just about having the time to handicap it all. So if there's a one game standalone game, this might be a game where I look at props and start to play those. And we've had good success doing that. So no strong opinion on this one with the Colts and the Vikings. Finally, Monday Night Football, the Buccaneers traveling to Kansas City, taking on the undefeated Chiefs, the last undefeated team left in the NFL. -8.5 on one book, but the rest -9, -9.5. I think this one's really simple, guys. Oh, total's 45, by the way, but I think this is so simple. Patrick Mahomes wins these games with large point spreads, but he does not cover them. I think it's very simple. If you can get 9.5 with the Bucs, that's where I would play it. I'd add 9.5. At 8.5 is maybe when you start to look at the Chiefs in a teaser, getting them down to 2.5. But I don't want anything with Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is. I don't want anything north of a touchdown with Pat Mahomes, right? That game earlier in the season on Monday Night Football where they had the Saints -5.5, a little bit different. But man, 9.5 is a big number for a team like Tampa that thrives off of their passing offense that'll probably be playing from behind in this game, so they're going to be throwing a lot. I don't want to give Baker Mayfield 9.5 points. No thanks. So I would lean to Tampa in this game. But like I said, if this settles at an 8.5 or an 8 across the board, I would look to play KC in a teaser because I do think they win the game. But I just think this is probably very likely a 6 or a 7 point win, or you probably have a backdoor situation where Casey's up like 13 late or 10 late, and Tampa's got the ball driving, and you know the whole thing happens. We've seen that happen a million times. So I would lean to the Buccaneers in that game. I think it's a pretty simple handicap there. All right, guys, that is the board for Week 9 in the NFL. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What games are you looking at? I will try to start responding to comments. I know I apologize. Sometimes I get tied up and I don't come back and respond. I will start looking at them and responding. And don't forget to check the description for my free plays, which are posted on the Action Network. Once I decide on them and they become official, they go on there. There's also deals down there as well. All right, so on to week 9. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for watching. Let's get it.